Hey guys, it's Rick. Welcome to Small Project Central. Today I'm going to be turning this disaster into
this. Stick around, let me show you how I did it. Now let's go!
working in a small space. You've got to use every square inch available. When we moved into this house a little over 3 years ago, the previous homeowner had the standard home center storage solutions, which left huge gaps between the shelves, leaving precious storage space unused. My goal with this build was to create storage cabinets with lots of adjustable shelves to best utilize the storage space inside and to get as much behind closed doors as possible. I also wanted the design of the cabinets to flow with the miter station I built earlier this year, so I decided to use the remainder of the Greek key patterned laminate that I had to cover the doors. To accomplish these goals, I knew I'd have to go from floor to ceiling with cabinets and shelving, working my way around the refrigerator. I designed an 8-foot tall cabinet which would store all of our cleaners, buckets, rags, garbage liners, among all the other household items we use on a regular basis. So I cut all my cabinet parts, including the doors, and then cut the laminate for the doors. When laminating doors, it's always recommended to apply the same thickness laminate on both sides of the door to create a balanced panel. In other words, reducing the risk of a warped door. Laminate will grow and shrink with changes in relative humidity, while the plywood substrate remains relatively stable. If you only applied laminate to one side, it would create stress in the assembly and ultimately warp the door. So next I measured and cut all the edge banding for the cabinet tops, bottoms, and sides, as well as the shelves. I didn't have enough laminate to use for edge banding, so I used the same pre-glued birch edge banding I used on the miter station. Although it was pretty mindless work, it was pretty satisfying trimming the edge band and watching it come off in long one-piece apple peels. Once I completed all the edge banding, I began assembling the cabinets. To optimize the storage, I built one cabinet 30 inches wide and the second cabinet 12 inches wide, and both cabinets were 15 inches in depth. The narrower cabinet would be used for brooms and mops, where the wider cabinet would be for all the smaller items we have. I included a fixed shelf in both a narrow and wide cabinet to provide stability. I used 2-inch SPAC screws to assemble the cabinets. This would provide plenty of strength. I wasn't concerned with the exposed screws, as the left side of the cabinet would be hidden next to the refrigerator and the right side would eventually be covered with a marker board laminate. To drill the holes for the adjustable shelves, I used a Craig jig, which allows accurate placement of 5mm holes. The jig comes with a 5mm dowel, so you can quickly move the template and stay in perfect alignment. Next, I built a base using the same 3/4 inch plywood I used for the cabinet assembly. I like to build my base separate from the cabinet, as I find it easier to level the base and then simply set the cabinet on top. At this point, I was ready to laminate the doors. I like to use a short nap roller to spread the contact adhesive on both the laminate and the substrate. It allows the contact to go on smoothly without gumming up or leaving lumps. I live in a relatively hot climate, so the contact typically dries in about 15 minutes or so. To make sure the glue is ready, I typically use the backside of my fingernail to check the surface. If no glue sticks to my fingernail, I know it's ready to go. I then used dowels to help position the laminate before sticking it down. I had barely a 1/16 of an inch overhang, so I had to be extremely careful when removing the dowels. After sticking the laminate, I used a J-roller over the entire surface to ensure a good bond. Then, using a flush trim bit with a guide bearing, I routed off all the overhang. I filed all the edges smooth in preparation for the drilling of the hinges. The melamine surface of the laminate is pretty tough to drill through, so this took some time. I used 6 hinges on each door, as they were 8 feet tall. Once the doors were drilled, I had the task of disassembling the wire racks and shuffling the standing shelves out of the way to make room for the new cabinets. I was feeling pretty claustrophobic as there was so little room to move around. Once I created space for the cabinets, I set them on the base, clamped and screwed them together, and then made sure I got a couple of screws into studs. Then I marked the locations for my hinge base plates.
Okay, so I've got it installed. I got it into a couple of studs, which is great. I'm gonna have to reattach the clicker for the garage door, but now I'm gonna go ahead and install the doors. If you look, what I did here is, I'm gonna zoom in. You can see I marked down 3.5 inches from the top, 37 millimeters in, which is the standard setback, which just kind of correlates with the 5 millimeter holes that I bored in my line boring for shelves. So anyway, I am going to go ahead and pop in a couple of plates and see if I can get this first door installed. Okay, I had to make some major adjustments to this door, and I've ultimately made my doors a little too big where I've got a little overhang on this side, but I'm not too concerned about that. So I'm gonna close that up, and close that up. And I like all my reveals nice and tight, very, very tight in there. And on this one, not so much. I got this kind of lined up, but this one did not line up. So it gave me kind of a funky pattern in the middle, but hey, I did the best I could. So anyway, I'm liking it. It's looking good. So now it's time to fill this sucker up with all this junk.
I then mounted some temporary hardware I had from another project. Okay, so I've spent the morning clearing out this wall, trying to gain access to my attic space, and sure enough, there is not enough room for a small child to walk through, to crawl through there. So I'm gonna have to create an opening in the house. So anyway, I've cleared this entire wall. Whoever put on this addition just put this scab piece on there to hide the drywall seam, I'm sure. So anyway, what I'm planning to do, let me see if I can back up here, there we go, is I am going to create on this wall a 7-foot cabinet, if you will, that is going to house my plywood and my foam board for cutting with my track saw. And then down there, in the corner, I'm going to go ahead and create another cabinet to house our tables, our collapsible tables and things like that we use in the house. And not sure what I'm going to do on top of the refrigerator. I'm kind of making this up as I go along, so we'll see what's next. But next is this right here. I've got all this flooring left over from the inside the house where one of our toilets leaked, and I thought we were going to have to replace everything. I bought everything and then they wouldn't take it back. So I'm going to make use of it and put it into the garage here on the floor. It's LVT. We're not going to put a car in here, so I'm not too worried about that. So it should create a nice comfortable workspace. So I worked on the floor for the next 5 hours, moving everything from one side to the other to give myself working space. The floor went down relatively quickly, and the light color made the garage feel much roomier. Using the same construction method as the tall cabinets, I measured and cut the parts for the corner cabinet and began the assembly. This cabinet was much deeper to accommodate the folding tables we have, and it matched up pretty well with the refrigerator. To help hold the tables in place, I cut and installed a small divider which would be placed at the bottom of the cabinet. Alright, so what I'm wanting to do here is the tables, I need them to stay here, but I don't want to put a huge divider between the two. In the event I want to move things around. So I measured to get the tables. I'm going to need right at 11 inches to fit the 3 big tables upright. And then a little table can fit on top of the big tables. So I'm going to go ahead and just scribe this line on the front and the back. So I mounted the divider in place with some screws from both the back and bottom of the cabinet. Okay, so I was able to get it installed. Sorry, I was in a rush to get this done today, so I didn't film it. But anyway, I leveled it up, leveled the base, found a stud back there, popped a couple in the corner as well, and I did a test fit. And so now that everything fits, now I just need to put a door on there. For this door, I decided to use laminate for the edge banding. Unfortunately, I didn't have enough laminate for both the front and back of the door, so I know eventually the door is going to warp unless I go back and add a piece to the back. I used painter's tape to not only protect the door from overspray, but to reduce the chance of any damage to the pre-finished side from the router bit. Once I finished applying the edge banding, I laminated the front of the door once again using the dowels. Then I J-rolled the top using moderate pressure, routed and filed. I used acetone to clean up any glue on the surface. You can also use contact solvent or mineral spirits. I just prefer the acetone as it doesn't leave any oils on the surface. Okay, so one of the things that you have to be careful of with high pressure laminate is printed on white paper. So if you file through like I did here, you're gonna expose that white paper. So I'm going to try to just do a little repair here with a little bit of a Sharpie. Put that on there and then just kind of blend it in a little bit so you won't see it as much. And this is on the bottom of the door, so I'm not too concerned about it. But I just wanted to point that out, that you got to be really careful the angle of your file so that you're not taking too much of the decorative surface off to expose that white base paper. I then measured and drilled for my hinges and attached the base plates inside the cabinet. I really want to get a jig for the mounting of the base plates. My current method is not very accurate. I ultimately want to try using the 32mm system as it will eliminate any guesswork. Perfect. Next, I began the final piece to this build, an open set of shelves. Okay, so I've tacked everything together. I am going to pop some screws in there, but what I want to do now is measure off 24 inches for each side, because this is going to hold my water jugs. And just so you'll know, our water jugs are important down here in South Florida because of the hurricanes. You never know when you're gonna not have water for weeks on end. This build was almost complete. I was so excited to get this completed as it really cleaned up the space. And if you hadn't already noticed, I built my French cleat wall in between building the cabinets. I have another video showing how I designed and built the wall. I also installed a small television so I can watch my favorite woodworking YouTubers as I'm working in the garage. I'm currently working on renovating my laundry room. I hope to have that video up in a couple of weeks. To finish this build, I attached the open shelves to the top of the corner cabinet and the side of the tall cabinet. I'm totally pleased on how this all came together.
Alright, it's looking good. I don't even think I need to drive anything into those studs because I got some screws into the top of this cabinet and I got screws into the tall cabinet, which is securely mounted to the wall. So I'm just going to leave it the way it is for right now because I'm not going to put that much heavy stuff on it. So it's looking good.